What a cutie, so bashful. The monster ran a finger over his bare chest, as if writing something, but all he felt was the terror that his heart might be ripped out at any moment. First, I'll tell you my name, honey bunny, syrupy words that seemed punctuated with heart marks in that deep, coarse voice. I am Neuronist, the great tomb of Nazarick, a special officer of intelligence gathering. I am also called the officer of torture. The long tentacles undulated, revealing the mouth at their base. A tube slipped out like a tongue from the opening lined with pointy fangs. It was just like a straw. Pretty soon I'll give you a little kiss and slurp. What was he going to slurp? Disturbed, he tried to move, but he was completely restrained. Now then, so we caught you? Yes. The last thing he remembered was Gringham and the thief running ahead of him disappearing. From then until now was a blank. You must at least know where you are. Neuronist smiled and went on. This is the great tomb of Nazarick, where the last of the 41 supreme beings, Lord Momono Aints, resides. It is the most sacred place in the world. Row 8th? Yes, Lord Aints. Neuronist understood and ran its hands over his skin, although he couldn't pronounce things properly. He is one of the 41 supreme beings. He was once their leader. And he is so wonderful. If you see him someday, you'll want to devote yourself to him too. If he called me to bed, I'd even let him be my first time. The monster didn't fidget, but writhed back and forth, as if embarrassed. Hey, listen to this. The monster doodled with a finger on his chest, like a bashful young girl would toy with her hands. Last time Lord Aints came here, he was staring at my body. It was the gaze of a male selecting his prey. And then he awkwardly averted his eyes. Oh, it gave me butterflies in my chest and chills down my spine. It suddenly stopped moving and leaned closer to peer into his eyes. He was desperate to escape from the odd-looking thing, but his body didn't budge. Little Sholtier and Ugly Albedo both seem to be after Lord Aints' affections too, but I definitely have more charm than them. Don't you think? Yeth I thu. What would happen to me if I didn't agree? The fear made him answer in the affirmative. Neuronist smiled, and clasping its hands together, gazed into space. It looked just like a religious fanatic praying to the heavens. Ooh hoo hoo. You ray so nice, honey, or are you simply telling the truth as it is? But why doesn't he call me then? Ah, Lord Aints, I love how stoic he can be. Its emotional trembling reminded him of the writhing of a fat annelid. It sighed. Ah, he makes me quiver. Oh, but I am so sorry for rambling on like this. Please just forget me. But Neuronist ignored his thoughts and continued. I'll go ahead and tell you what fate has in store for you. Do you know what a chua is? He blinked blankly at the sudden question. Perhaps deciding his confusion meant he didn't understand. Neuronist began to explain. It is a chorus that sings sacred songs and hymns to glorify and adore a god. I am going to have you be a member with your friend. If that was all, it wouldn't be so bad. He wasn't confident in his singing, but he wasn't tone deaf either. Was this monster really after something so commonplace, though? Unable to conceal his creeping worry, he gave Neuronist a sidelong look. Really, honey? A choir? Even if you fools haven't sworn allegiance to Lord Aints, singing loudly can be an offering to him. Yes, I want you to sing all together. Ah, it gives me chills. Gospel music from Neuronist to Lord Aints. A foggy color came over its creepy eyes. Had it gotten overexcited from its own imaginings? Its thin fingers wriggled like bugs. Ooh hoo 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 hoo. Now then, I'll introduce your chorus S helpers. They must have been in the corner of the room up until then. Several figures abruptly moved into his field of vision. Seeing the creatures made him forget to breathe for a moment, because it was clear from a glance that they were evil. They wore fitted black leather aprons. Their bodies were paler than milk. Purple blood vessels were visible beneath their skin, if such a thing as purple blood existed. Black leather masks covered their entire heads, with not even the tiniest gap. It was a mystery how they saw anything or breathed. They had extremely long arms. They were about 6.5 feet tall, but if they extended their arms, they probably would have reached past their knees. They wore fully stocked tool belts around their hips. There were 4 of these creatures. These are the torturers. These little dears are going to help me give you a wonderful singing voice. He had a bad feeling. Realizing what singing meant, he struggled frantically to escape. But as expected, he couldn't move. It's no use, honey. You can break the restraints with those puny muscles. These little dears will cast healing magic on you so you can practice a bunch. It spoke in a tone that said, I am so nice, Aaron T.I. Thop id. He screamed with tears in his eyes. What is that? You want me to stop? It asked him gently. Then it waved its 6 tentacles. Listen here, honey bunny. We creations of the supreme beings are permitted to exist because he stayed behind. We exist to serve him. Do you really think we would show a crumb of mercy to a bunch of thieves who tramped into his house with their dirty feet? Really? I am Thaui. Yes, that's right. Repentance is vital. Uranus took a thin rod out from somewhere. It was topped with a thorn less than 1/5 of an inch long. First, ILL used this. He didn't know what it was for, so Uranus gleefully explained. My creator suffered from a horrible little thing called urethral calculus, so ILL performed this act in honor of him. You're all little right now, so I think it'll go in nice and easy. New Thop. Upon realizing what was about to happen, he began to sob, and Uranus drew its face in close. We're going to be together for quite some time. Things'll be tough if you start crying now, honey. The teams had all chosen different directions at an intersection. Elia Uzruth chose the path straight ahead. He believed the strongest enemies would be in the back, though he wasn't sure why. Along the way there had been stone doors and too many corners to count. He just kept walking silently, feeling it was the right way. He was bored stiff by how uneventful it had been. There weren't any monsters. There weren't even any traps. Is this the wrong way? Elia wondered and clicked his tongue. You dolt, keep going. He gave orders in a sharp tone to the elf slave he was making walk about 10 yards ahead. It seemed like she was about to stop. She trembled for a split second and then trudged forward. She'd barely been allowed any rest since they entered the tomb. So far, luckily, nothing had happened. But if there was a trap, there was a good chance she'd die. It was less like he was having her search for traps, and more like he was sending her into a mine as his canary. Elia's team included himself and 3 elf slaves. Each slave had different abilities: ranger, priest, and druid. It was a waste to order her out front when he had no replacement for her search skills, but he had his reasons. He was simply sick of her. Many people hearing this would be shocked, not from an ethical standpoint, but in terms of finances. Slaves from the slain theocracy were not cheap, especially elves. The price could jump dramatically depending on their looks and skills. Usually they fetched eye-popping prices. Ordinary citizens couldn't hope to get their hands on one. Elves with skills were worth about as much as an enchanted weapon with some special effect. Even Elia couldn't shell out that much over and over, but Elia took all of Tenbu's compensation for himself, so if things went well, he could make his money back quicker than one would guess. That was why if he was sick of an elf, he didn't have to worry if she died. He was thinking, next time I want one with slightly bigger breasts, as he watched the elf trudging ahead. It was fun to grab them hard and make them scream. Since this was a joint job, he hadn't slept with an elf in several days. Not that anyone would complain if he did, but there could be some unpleasantness due to jealousy. Elia had enough common sense as a worker to know what a disadvantage that could become, but the built-up desire was giving him daydreams. Or maybe next time, I'll try to get one like that lady. The one he had in mind was a member of Foresight, a half-elf who always looked at him with loathing in her eyes. She was truly a pain. There was another woman, maybe more like a girl, on that team with her. He accepted the openly antipathetic way she looked at him. Women rarely understood a man's sex drive, and at her age, she probably thought boys had cooties. But he couldn't forgive the lower life form looking at a human like the half-elf did. Even just remembering, it caused the flames of anger to scorch his handsome features. I'd like to beat that disgusting face of hers until she can't resist anymore. By the time elf slaves reached their owner's hands, they had their spirit broken in various ways. An elf slave would never rebel, but if he set his sights on that half-elf, she would struggle against him like a wild animal. It wouldn't be difficult for him to break and conquer her. He probably wouldn't be unscathed, though. He wasn't at all confident he could take her alive. Envisioning himself punching Amina several times in the face, he was slow to realize the elf walking ahead of him had stopped. Why did you stop? Walk. Eek, I hear a noise. A noise. He frowned at the elf who had mustered all her courage to answer. He focused all his attention on his ears. The area was silent, so still it hurt. I don't hear it. Normally he would strike her at that point, but elves had better hearing than humans. There was a good chance that even if he couldn't pick it up, the elves could. To confirm, he asked the other two next to him, how about you two? Why yes, I hear something. The sound of metal clanging. Is that so? The sound of metal clanging would definitely not arise in nature. so it had to be a sound someone was making. It was possible they would engage in combat for the first time since entering the tomb. This thought excited Elia. We're going to find whatever is making that sound. Why yes, sir. He had the elf walk out front, and they proceeded in the direction of the noise. Before long, Elia could also hear the metallic clanging. Two hard things were clashing with quite some force. Then a sharp scream. Is it another team fighting? I didn't intend to move in an arc, but it seems we've come across one of the other groups. With a bucket of cold water thrown over his near-giddy excitement, Elia lost his motivation and sighed. Well, it's fine. Maybe we can fight as reinforcements. As they continued walking toward the source of the noise, Elia began to feel something was off. For a battle, it didn't sound right. It was almost as if his doubt was cleared up when they turned the corner. It was a room big enough for dozens of people to run around inside. Inside were 10 lavishly armored lizard men. They all had collars around their necks. The chains were severed and hung loosely. They were swinging swords at one another. The blows were unleashed with intense screams. They were repelled with determined slashes. These exchanges were going on throughout the room. The scene resembled a fierce battle, but Elia saw at a glance that it was training. The fact that they stopped the moment Elia and the others entered the room made it certain. Also inside was one giant. He had a tower shield and wore black full-plate armor. The armor had a crimson pattern like blood vessels, and there was someone else, or perhaps something else was more accurate. It was a huge magical beast with a silver coat and wise eyes. So you've finally come, have you, raiders? Magical beasts who could talk were usually trouble. Magical beasts usually just forced things with their robust physiques, but the highly intelligent ones could use magic. Elia was sure of himself as a genius swordsman, but he wasn't so great with magic. Flexing his core and steeling his mind, he prepared to resist his opponent's spells. He asked, "Who are you?" He probably didn't need to. As long as it was waiting for them, it had to be one of the tomb's defenders. The question was, where did it rank in the hierarchy? From the beast's appearance, it was possible that it was the master of the tomb. If that was the case, slaying it would be meritorious service of the first rank. It would make his team the most outstanding one on the job. Tenbu was Elia's team and his alone. That would mean he was the best of all the workers there. Luck was an important part of being a worker. I was told to act as your opponent, it said. We were supposed to test several things, but you ray no match for me, you ray not. Disappointment and irritation assailed him at once. He felt this way because this monster was only a watchman. The reason for this was that it was taken lightly. You ray going to say that without even fighting me? Hey, sir, the elf he called for in a low voice jumped. The sight of it was immensely satisfying. That was the proper attitude for addressing him. His mind was soothed after the irritation of spending so much time cohabitating with Momon, whom everyone looked up to. What kind of magical beast is that? I am sorry. I am not familiar with it. It's useless. He struck the useless elf with the hilt of his sword. She fell to the floor and, covering her face, issued a stream of apologies, but he ignored her and examined the magical beast's build. It was so big that attacking it head-on didn't seem advantageous, but that's how most magical beasts were. He killed plenty of them. It was ridiculous to be scared of it just because it was a type he didn't know. Caution was necessary, but going past cautious to scared was the height of incompetence. Let me ask you something. Do you have any reason for believing you can win against me? You look so weak, it said. Elia scowled and gripped his sword harder. Well, it seems like you've got knotholes for eyes. Shall I gouge them out for you? Please do not, that I ask. Now then, my orders say it's all right for me to kill you, that they do, so let us start this fight, shall we? Its tone was carefree. That further irritated Elia. He wanted to just attack without saying anything more, but swinging his sword at the magical beast while it was so composed would make him feel inferior. So he held himself back and scoffed. Yes, let us beast. By the way, I wonder what you ray doing that I do. Those elves need to prepare, do they not? I don't need them. More importantly, those lizards behind you, yes. No need to worry about them. No, there isn't. They are only here to watch us, that they are. Pay no attention to them, that I say, giving up your sole chance at victory. Ray, a brave one, I am glad for your praise that I am, so it doesn't understand sarcasm. It understands words, but I guess it's not that smart. Elia was thinking when the beast spoke again, wiggling its whiskers. Even so, I'll mercilessly kill you, that I will. So come at me with your full strength, that I wish. As I said earlier, this is a test for me, that it is. A test, as a gatekeeper, not quite, no. A test of whether I've progressed as a warrior or not, that it is. Now then, it is about time for me to attack, that it is. For the moment I will not fight the elves behind you. No, I want only you, as you wish, have at me. I'm Hamusuk. Remember the name of the one who killed you and go to the next world, that I say. Give me your name as well, that you should. I have no name, a beast needs to know. Then I will strike you from my memory as a fool with no name, that I will. The huge monster charged all at once. It was incredibly nimble for its size. A lesser warrior would have been overwhelmed by the pressure. They would have been unable to avoid serious injury from the beast's body check. But I am not like those twerps. Elia drew Hamusuk's charge to the last moment. Then he slid to the side without moving his feet. This was the effect of an improved version of the martial art Contracting Earth. Contracting Earth revised. Contracting Earth was usually only used to close a gap between oneself and one's opponent. But it could shift the user in any direction. It looked rather strange to change position without moving one's feet, but it was very practical. Evading with a large movement always resulted in instability. Without that loss of balance, it was possible to flow directly into an attack, and it allowed one to put their weight into it. Yarg, he brought his sword down Gublag. Hamusuk bounced into him, and he went flying. Its body felt unbelievably hard. The soft-looking silver pelt was actually as solid as metal. From Elia's point of view, he'd been hit with a wrecking ball. His consciousness whited out for a split second. The moment he hit the floor, he confirmed by instinct that he could still move all his parts. He had bruises, but nothing was broken. He was still able to fight. His mind was nearly overrun by rage that he was lying on the ground and had shamefully taken his opponent's hit. But the warrior in him scolded himself. Now wasn't the time to think those things. As he stood up, he simultaneously took note of Hamusuk's position and pointed his sword to meet the beast's charge. Something slimy ran from his nose. He wiped it away with a hand. As expected, it was blood. You vile bitch, Hamusuk watched, unmoving, in silence as Elia got to his feet. Perhaps observed is the best word. They were not the eyes of a beast wondering, can I eat this? Can I defeat it? But they were the eyes of a warrior trying to judge how best to fight based on their brief exchange of blows. Was he the test to see if this beast could develop into a warrior? It wasn't pleasant, but he had to acknowledge that her movements were not those of a mere animal. The previous attack had been a leaping body check when she saw he had gotten around her flank. She wasn't terribly powerful, but the fact that she had been able to respond to the situation had to be due to training. I see that I do. If I keep chipping away at you, I can win with ease, that I can. Oh, but don't feel bad, no, you should not. I have never met a human who could defeat me, no. I haven't try saying that after you get a load of this. Unlike beasts, warriors have martial arts. He had thought he could win with energy to spare, so he hadn't used them. He no longer had that leeway. Martial arts ability boost. Greater ability boost. He was proud of these arts, especially greater ability boost. It usually couldn't be acquired by someone of Elia's level. The fact that I could get it proves I am a prodigy. I really am strong. He swung his sword. His body felt light. His movements were smooth. His sword moved as if tracing a perfect image. He smirked. Now it's my turn. You are supposed to take some distance when unsure of your opponent's strength, you are, but as a warrior I must fight. It can be helped, no it cannot. Hamusuk closed in, walking on 2 feet. A close quarters fight that it is. Can you handle it? Don't underestimate me, beast. As soon as she was in range, he slashed. At the last moment, Hamusuk used her claws to parry the attack Elia unleashed with his boosted body. Or more accurately, she tried to because the sword slipped into her foreleg. It had lost a lot of momentum, so it couldn't rip into her tough pelt or cut the meat beneath. Without bringing his katana back, he lunged at Hamusuk's eyes. Some monsters could repel shabby swords with the protective film over their eyes. And some warriors could repel an amateur's sword with kai or an aura. But Hamusuk didn't seem to have any defensive powers like that. For precisely that reason, Hamusuk couldn't allow him that attack. At the same time she spun out of the way of the thrusting blade, her tail went flying at Elia. He blocked it with his sword. The surprisingly intense impact turned to numbness that spread up his arm. KGH, he could see Hamusuk spinning around once more. In other words, that impact was on its way again. Elia jumped out of the way. He already had a pretty good idea of how long her tail was. Once it passed him, he could use Contracting Earth Revised to charge. Just as he thought the tail was about to pass, it abruptly stopped. It had been a feint. In the interlude, Hamusuk had taken a different stance and withdrawn her tail at the same time. Having lost the chance to leap at her, Elia grimaced. Her tail moved in a completely different way from her body. It was less like a mouse's tail and more like the snake tail of a chimera. It moved independently. So your tail can move on its own. Overwriting the data in his mind about this magical beast, Hamusuk, Elia leaped at her. Hamusuk, who had been waiting, intercepted. Katana crossed claw.